Greetings, I am Pillar Nexus, Ancient Gladiator, with a new series called Scenario Nexus. I may be covering multiple games in this episode, but otherwise I'll try to keep it one-to-one. We're going to be looking at games with multiple ways of playing, and just think about how to do more with that. So first off, we got Citadels. In the game, you will gather gold, draw cards, play them, and along the way you'll have to make use of characters. The game has your first game set of characters and unique buildings or districts. It also offers preset options like cunning agents and others. For example, with the cunning agents, we've got the witch, the blackmailer, the magician, the emperor, the abbot, the alchemist, the architect, the warlord, and tax collector. And 14 specific unique districts. The game said it's described in the game as this list maintains a strong direct confrontation element while highlighting some of the more tricksy, zany aspects of the game. So it's entirely possible to make your own set, but you want to have in mind what do I want my set of characters and unique districts to pull off in terms of potential interactions. Granted the big deck of districts is random, but there's still that potential to draw them anyway, and then make use of the characters in that set. So there's that to think about. As an alternative, not just playing one game, but playing several, there's making up 3 sets that utilize all of the characters from 1 to 9 once. The same cannot be done with the unique districts because 14 out of 5, let's see, there's another 10, 15. There are 30 unique districts, so there's going to be some repeats. But you can kind of make a story out of using some of the previous unique districts and then replacing some of them with new ones. And then just making it track your points across all 3 games, and whoever does the best wins the session. Yeah, I want to figure out, because when we play this game, it usually ends up being the first freaking set, and it's fine. It does what it's supposed to do, but I want to experiment more with all these extra characters and districts. So it's like, okay, what are some thoughts I can put into making the sets? I'm sure other people figured out some sets already, and I'm curious to go check it out and try them out in a future board game night. But that's Citadels for you. Set of characters, set of unique districts, fairly easy to figure out in terms of customization. So there's the first game for this episode. Next game for this episode is Heart of Crown. The game is, you'll have a starter deck of farming villages and apprentice maids. There'll be a market deck with various cards to buy that show up at random, including the 2 rare cards. And you'll be trying to build up your resources and abilities to back a princess, and then ultimately get the succession needed to crown them and win the game. So the game has options for your first time playing, and it features a bunch of other options as well for learning the game over several sessions. The game has expansions as well, which add more cards. for making your own set, there's either the randomizer, which risks being the most insanely unbalanced thing ever, or you can actually take your sweet time and just look and then build your own set. The expansions offer some integrated ideas as well, but coming up with your own integrated set of the base game and the expansions is also its own rewarding thing. Another thing you could consider is, again, like Citadels, making up a story out of several sets by not repeating certain cards. Is having players accumulate their victories over the course of several games and having most wins. One idea that I want to keep in mind is like, okay, there's enough to potentially do, I believe, 5 or 6 sets with the expansions. So it's like for the first game, whoever gets actually crowned is unavailable for the next game. And then once 4 games have gone, that those princesses who got crowned, those are the only ones available to back in the 5th and final game. So that's something I want to explore as an idea. Again, making unique sets to tell this story. It's something to try out, and I'm going to be figuring that out. Maybe for like a Saturday game in the future. Anyway, so that's Heart of Crown. So we'll go on to the last game for the episode. And finally, there's New Angeles, where you'll play as the head of a corporation, and you'll have an ability to get you more capital on your goal to get more capital than your rival. And you'll also have your investments to pull that off, but you'll also have to deal with the demand. And all the other problems that are going to happen, because you'll need to sort of work together, but at the same time do your own thing to win. So the scenarios for the game are these cards. They always have 3 androids, but there's also a protest, strike, illness, outage, human first, or crime, and private security and development. So actually making a scenario for the game. Basically just make a copy of this and then, make that blank and make that blank and make this blank. And then figure out what you want to do to make things interesting. So there'll always be a starting number of assets. There'll always be the 3 androids out there. But then you get to decide what kind of trouble is going to be out there at the start. And then you'll have to figure out how many assets are going to start on the track. The more there are, the more time players have to get things fixed. So probably the more trouble there's out here at the start, the more time players should have to deal with it. Other things to consider in this game for potential scenario ideas. I mean, the game comes with its own event deck, but with some blank cards and maybe some sleeves to make it not very apparent that you've added your own custom ones, you probably add your own ideas here as well. Just remember, clue on the back relates to what triggers extra threat, and also adding more human first, or crime, outages, and illness. Scenario wise, I don't know what else could be suggested. Maybe very specifically seeding the demands, because it's always the same 9 demands, but they're randomized and you only get 3 of them. So maybe having the scenario specifically refer to certain demands in certain order, or maybe making 3 clusters of 3 and then randomly taking 1 from each for each of the 3 demands over the course of the game. Alternatively, seeding the asset deck, so that's, or stacking it in a way to have certain assets come out sooner rather than later, to tell a story of its own in that way. But mostly it's going to be just making your own setup card. Alright, so those were the 3 games that I featured today: Citadels, Heart of Crown, and New Angeles. I'm not sure what else to suggest for them, scenario-wise. It's kind of hard when it's like strictly cards. You kind of have to work in those limits. And, actually making extra cards, you either have to make a completely unique deck, or just, I don't know, a completely unique deck, or just make it, or use card sleeves that are going to hide the fact that you've added your own amongst the normal cards. So yeah, that's Scenario Nexus episode 1. We'll see you next episode.